Khubeka is a board member of SA Harvest. He joins us now to talk about the record 5 million meals delivered in 18 months by South African food rescue organizations. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Khubeka.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine.
So it's something to certainly celebrate this record number in the record time. But just tell us the situation that you were facing. 5 million meals for how many people? How many people were on the brink of starvation?
Oh, yeah, and I mean it's a dire state of affairs, as the clip has shown. You know, we did these 5 million meals in less than 18 months. I mean, that just tells you how big the need is. And you know, for me, it's also not just about the quantum of the meals; it's making sure that those meals are nutritious, because it's quite easy to be focused on calories and just say, "Oh, we've done X amount," but it's actually how good are those meals? How nutritious are those meals? Because that's the unintended consequence of COVID is, you know, a lot of people are just not getting good, healthy food.
So we'll talk about the group of people that you fed and how you came to know about them, because often communities don't even know that their next door neighbors are starving. So just give us a sense of the situation. How dire is it? And how you got to know who needs what?
Yeah, we kind of lucky and privileged in that we from one community-based organization in Cape Town, we've managed through word of mouth to grow that to across the country. We're now obviously in Joburg, Cape Town, and Durban, and working to open our PE branch. And that's largely because, you know, people who are in the know just start telling others. And again, that's one of the big challenges about working in this space, is that you feed 1,000 people today, there's 1,500 tomorrow. So one of our biggest things is building systems to make sure that we try and fix the problem from a systemic perspective, because charity is not sustainable. And over and above that, charity robs people of their dignity, you know, and we often find that the people we are actually helping are not poor, they're just poorly paid. So if we made it such that they could afford to pay the little they had, a lot more people would. And a lot more people would come out of the stigmatization that charity tends to bring with it, you know. Yeah.
And as you say, it is all relative, the quality of the meals as well. So talk to me about the root causes of systemic hunger and starvation, especially against the backdrop where there is an abundance of food. We know that there is good quality food that also goes to waste on a daily basis everywhere.
So a core part of what SA Harvest does is food rescue. So that essentially means we find food that's reaching sell-by date, and there's nothing wrong with that food. It's highly nutritious, and you know, retailers tend to put the date so that they know when to move stock. So there's essentially nothing wrong with that food. Or farmers have food that maybe not meet the spec in terms of the shape and the size of what retail wants. So we find that food and we look at it and repurpose it and to put it into our factory warehouses and move it with our refrigerated trucks, making sure that obviously from a health and safety perspective, all those things are catered for. So that's the core part of what we do but one of the things we learned in that process is that hunger is not a food problem. There's enough food to feed, you know, there's enough food in the world to feed 10 billion people, and we only have 7.5 billion. And most of that food also still goes to waste. So the question is, if we have all this food, why do we have people who are hungry? And it just turns out is that there's people who need access to food, and there's people who have excess, in other words, too much food, and the two just don't know each other. So the biggest challenge is just to connect those two dots so that the excess food meets where it is in demand.
So talk to me about how you and I, the ordinary man on the street, somebody who's watching, can get involved in your logistics distribution, especially from a hygiene controls and protocols perspective. because sometimes people often are also even shy of offering food because of how they'd be regarded. So how does one circumvent some of these challenges and also make sure that when the food is delivered, it is done in such a way that it respects those hygiene protocols and controls?
Yeah, and I think that's something we take very, very seriously, because, you know, food is something you ingest, and the likelihood of things going wrong there are very many and can happen very fast. But with over 70 beneficiaries, God willing and touch wood, we haven't had an issue. So that's largely because we take health and safety very, very seriously. So if people want to engage with us and help us out, they're more than welcome to obviously follow us on our social media handles, and that's SA Harvest, and they can find us obviously on things like from WhatsApp to Facebook to Instagram. You can find us there. Our website is saharvest.org, and all our details are also there.
All right, just before I let you go, what kind of foodstuffs would you recommend that people donate? Because sometimes I think we just quickly go to easy things like food, tin stuff, things that we believe have longevity. But what other foods can people donate? Fresh foods, if possible. And what's the time frame as well?
Yeah, I think the canned food is obviously all a good and easy measure. But we, like as I said earlier, balancing and calories and nutrition often means that people don't donate as much fresh vegetables, which is something we do need. And because we've got refrigerated vehicles and warehouses, we can handle that. So from our perspective, we are actually very keen to receive anything people can donate. But ideally, we would like to reach out to corporates, because most corporates have this excess food, especially in hospitality. Hotels and restaurants tend to have a lot of food in their walk-in freezers. So we would very much appreciate that, including restaurants as well.
Miles, thank you so much for speaking to us. Miles Khubeka is a board member of SA Harvest on the record 5 million meals delivered in 18 months by South African food rescue organizations. He's told you how they do it. Reach out to them on social media platforms if you want to donate or help out. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we talk around the saga of the Cuban engineers and why the matter is so controversial. Do stay with us.